I'm on my way to pick up my guests for today. This one is going to be a bit personal because I haven't seen this person in a couple years and we haven't had this kind of conversation in God knows how long. But I'm really excited to be able to share this conversation and record this conversation because it's something I want to be able to play back to my kids and to my grandkids when they get a chance to meet this person. But looking forward to another great What Drives You. I really encourage everyone to have these kind of conversations. But today we're going to have a conversation with today's episode of What Drives You. I think it's going to be very special. I have a very special guest with me who is the reason why I'm able to talk to you today. He's the reason why my hair is long because he decided to cut his off. And he is the reason why I am as handsome as I am. I would love to introduce you all to my father, Reverend Terry Hassell. Dad,
Hey, buddy.
happy that you're here with me today.
Oh, happy that I am here as well.
Um, so I know you because you have been in my life for all of 35 years. But I would love for you to kind of like share your story. Who is Terry Hassell?
Oh, wow. Well, I guess I will start by saying, I come from born and raised in the island of Bermuda. Been there for most of my life. Spent a wee bit of time living overseas in the U.S. in various states. I guess in total about 16 years or so doing that before relocating back to Bermuda. Um, who am I? Well, I am an ordained clergy person, and in ministry for the majority of my life, um, and also currently am a senior probation officer for the Department of Court Services in Bermuda. Um, and both of those worlds, the ordained ministry and the work that I do as a senior probation officer, um, merge and blend extremely well because I get to do what I most love to do in both of those capacities, and that's working with and helping people. Um, yeah. So, yeah, I guess that's professional wise.
Yeah.
Like you said, being your dad is special. You were my first child, and where I made all the mistakes. It's funny, we often laugh. When you were in the process of entering this world, we had all these books on parenting and all those kinds of things. And I was to buy the book, like I wanted to make sure I had it right. Um, by the time we had your youngest sister, which was third child later, there was no book. We just kind of threw the book aside, and because I learned that it's just parenting and raising children and being a father and being a family man and all that kind of stuff has so many variations that you just have to roll with it. which in essence can lead to sometimes making mistakes, and not always getting it right. But learning from those mistakes and growing from those mistakes is what's key. So, yeah.
Coming from the island of Bermuda, that's where all our family is and such. And what inspired you to move to the States?
Well, it's crazy, right? Because I've always had a kind of like a roaming spirit. I remember even being young as a child, like 13, 14, and wanting to um, explore other things. I had an opportunity when I was about 15 to, I was working at this restaurant, and the owners of the restaurant wanted to send me off to culinary school. And but at 15 or 16, I was like, so I had a rooming spirit, but then I also had a lot of fear. So I kind of declined that. But what actually got me to the States was going into ministry. Well, before I could do that, I needed education. So I left Bermuda um, with you guys. You were 2 years old when we left Bermuda. So at 25 at that stage, and went off to seminary down in Virginia. Not seminary, I'm sorry. I went to my undergraduate work at Liberty University in Virginia, and spent 4 years there. Um, from there, we moved back to Bermuda for a few years. Nana at the time, Nana Paula was gravely ill, and just after us moving back, actually, she did pass away. So we spent a few years there, and then I wanted to further my education, master's work, and so we went and relocated to Atlanta, where I was at Turner Theological Seminary at the Interdenominational Theological Center, and we spent 4 years of education there. And after receiving my master's, we never went back to Bermuda. Not for a while, anyway. I got thrown right into the ministry, and was my first pastor experience while we were still living in Atlanta. Was in Frankfort, Delaware, 600 plus miles away, one way. So we did that commute for several months before transitioning there. So yeah, it was education that really got me, which all kind of seems to um, line up with my that inner drive that I had to always want to venture out and try different things, different experiences. So, yeah.
Well, I now know where I get it from.
Yeah.
Because I've always been the adventurous one, especially out of our family.
Yeah.
Going to Europe at, I was like 12, 13 when we went to football.
Yeah, it was 12, 13 when we went to
Germany
and
to Amsterdam.
Amsterdam. Had to walk you down the side streets in Amsterdam because one of the boys are trying to see you. Any of you been to Amsterdam, you know what I'm talking about. But anyhow,
Hey, at 14, puberty is already hit.
well,
So
yeah, this is true. But I think, to be honest with you, that it was way before that, because we left Bermuda when you were 2. And then we were flying backwards and forwards. So you have been used to traveling and being on an airplane like from early age. I can remember when you were in primary school at West End, and I think one of your teachers was having a conversation about weather, and they were talking about snow, and you were the only child in your class at that time who had a real time experience with snow. Everyone else is talking about the ice they see in the refrigerator and the freezer box. And you said, no, I actually played in it. So you've always, that's always been a part of you. And yeah, so I think that came early in your life. Yeah.
I also attribute my wandering spirit to the fact that we used to watch James Bond movies.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, your daddy was a James Bond fanatic. Had all the videos and
Every
CDs.
every single movie even Timothy Dalton,
Yep.
we have watched religiously
Yep. Numerous times.
numerous times.
Yeah.
I told someone that story, and they asked me who was my favorite James Bond. So I'm gonna ask you, who was your favorite James Bond?
Hands down, Sean Connery. Yeah, I know he was just smooth, and everything about him was James Bond. Pierce Brosnan is the worst, I think. Was it Pierce Brosnan?
Most people don't like Timothy.
Yeah.
Pierce Brosnan.
Bro,
When I go back and watch the movies,
yeah,
the movies aren't that bad.
yeah, the movies aren't bad, but I don't know. They just the two of them just didn't seem to capture the essence of who James Bond was. Like it always seemed, Sean Connery just seemed authentic. It was just like his nature. These guys, like every time I watch, I say, well, they are actors. Like getting it done well, but they are actors. So.
Although I really like Daniel Craig.
Yeah, Daniel Craig was a different version, I guess.
He's a more scruffier version, but
yeah.
I still really liked it because he just.
You know what's funny though? I can't sit through a James Bond movie anymore without falling asleep. It's not because I don't not enjoying the movie. It's that they're 3 hours, man, and like my body just says, nah, not this time.
Second question that I like to ask people, another question I should say, and this can be a kind of a two-part question. Is one, do you feel that you are successful? And two, what has made you successful?
Well, I guess it would depend upon what we deem success to be. Because I've ventured in many different spaces and I've also had many transitions within those spaces. So, for instance, in the ministry pastoral piece, I had done that for with one particular denomination for 20 plus years as a pastor. Success sometimes is measured for them. It's the higher you go, the bigger your church, those kinds of things. If you look at that and want to measure success, then I would probably say, well, I never had that large numbers in that capacity. So, in terms of life success for me, it's having my 3 children turn out to be extremely exceptional human beings in the context that they're all charting their path in life, doing well. So from that perspective, I would say, yeah, I'm successful. If you're looking at it in the context of counting dollars, well, yeah, I would say no in the standard that people count dollars, but successful in the sense that I've always been able, or more so later in life, remaining truthful to my authentic self, and so finding that space to operate in and being a decent human being, a decent person. I would say that I'm successful. So, but being able to provide for others, and I think that's always been my, I suppose, successful in that regard is that I've always been able to provide for others.
Yeah.
Taking care, making sure that family was taken care of, and that kind of stuff. And it wasn't always easy, and didn't always. And sometimes we had to wait for things, but I think success in that regard, I would say yes, I've been successful. What made that possible? I think again would be the fact that when I raised you guys to not being afraid to ask questions, not being afraid to think outside the box. Matter of fact, remove the box, right? So,
Yeah.
When you make decisions, make informed decisions, which would mean not being afraid to give you or share with you or expose you to information and ideologies that would not necessarily be considered the norm, right? In our context of what norm would be. So not being, so allowing you to grow and develop in that context.
Right.
Become the person who you are today. Did I make mistakes along the way? Oh yeah, I believe in every sphere of success, whether it's a businessman, an athlete, um, you name it. They would all say that it was through their mistakes or through their failures or through their falls. Then I say falling down and getting back up,
Right.
which is what led them to be successful.
Mm.
So from that context, yeah, that's what's behind it. That's what I would have to say. Yeah, would it be nice to be a millionaire and have oodles and oodles of money? Yeah, it would be. But then
Like,
I also recognize that comes with a lot of issues.
more money, more problems.
Yeah, it is running out. Ain't it?
Right.
I'm sorry. Too soon to stop thinking too soon. Too soon. Sorry. But you got my point, right?
Mm-hmm.
You always view that having the most money being successful, but it's just a variation.
Yeah. No, that's definitely. I mean, I think to be able to still be alive, breathing, thriving, have relatively good health. I think that's the measure of success that I like to try to live by. Of course, there are financial goals that I like to hit, and I'm still working towards those.
Yeah.
But I'm also learning to not so much focus on the finances, focus on the relationships, and that will help.
I think that's the whole notion, right? Like even people who we may perceive to to be born with some level of disability, right? Still manage to be or are successful people, because I think success sometimes is more of an attitude than it is an ability. So if you are able to manage in the space where you are, and you're able to view life from a perspective that it's not always woe it's me, but it's thank God I am who I am.
Right.
Becoming your authentic self and being true to who you are as a person. All of those areas for me mark success as well. So yeah, having goals. I mean, we all need to be able to set goals and 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 be able to obtain those things. But it's always with what you do with those things. It's always the mindset, the attitude behind having those things.
Right.
I know some people who are filthy rich, but they're the worst human beings in the world. People that I don't even want to be around. You and your money can go somewhere, but then there are some people who are dirt broke poor. But man, I would spend days sitting over with them and just
Right.
chatting and that kind of stuff. So it's just about perspective,
Yeah.
And I remember my aunt used to have, Aunt Marie, used to have hanging on her bathroom wall this sign that said, I used to complain because I didn't have any shoes.
Right.
Until one day I met a man who didn't have any feet.
Mm.
And that has always stayed with me and resonates with me as I go through life. Like,
Yeah, it's all about perspective.
It's all about perspective. We're back home in Bermuda, right? We got the roads, a lot of potholes, right? And I was talking to someone the other day, and they were just complaining about this pothole, that pothole. The government needs to fix this. We need to do something about that. And it was just going on and on. And I just looked at them, and I said, well, I hear what you're saying, and you're right. There are a lot of potholes, but we could be in Gaza right now, dodging bullets and bombs dropping.
Right.
And I said, I'm not to say that I'm in favor of what's going on in Gaza, because that's a whole other conversation we can have
Right.
on that one. But my point is that it's about perspective, and sometimes we find ourselves being pulled into things and complaining about things when in all reality, and I know that that's our reality. That's where we are in that space, but sometimes it's not always. We need to relax, breathe, enjoy life. Um, so
Definitely.
yeah.
Being yeah, like that's I like to ask that question because it helps me learn how you define success.
Yeah.
Because like yes, it could be monetary, it could be whatever, but as through learning this question from you or learning this answer from you, you value what you've been able to provide for your kids.
Yeah. And even as a senior probation officer, right?
Mm-hmm.
The work that I do, um, I I mean I love my job.
Right.
There's a lot of uh, red tape and politics around trying to get certain things done, but the work that I do, I wake up for that. I remember there was a saying one time that like whatever it is you do, love doing it, and do it, and to the point where it's something that you're willing to do for free.
Right.
But do it well enough
that your
people can pay you for it. And so for me, I just enjoy that type of work because I've always been in the field of helping people.
Yeah.
Most of my clients today are guys that are, and girls, majority guys that are on either parole or probation, that had some challenges with the criminal justice system. And and so now I work with people in looking at changing perspectives, changing the way we think, right?
Right.
And oftentimes I teach a program called Thinking for a Change, which basically looks at how our thinking, what our thinking is, and what it's centered around. And we develop these attitudes and we have these belief systems that were raised in certain ways. So for instance, if you're raised in an environment where you think or been taught or always been shown that the police are bad, and I'm just using that as a random example.
Yeah.
But if you are raised in an environment where the police are bad, then whenever you see a police officer or whatever, you would have this reaction. And then if you're raised in an environment where there are no boundaries, there are no rules or whatever, so you think you can break into somebody's house. One, because you think one, because you think, well, they have insurance and insurance will cover it, and two, you think, well, I have the right.
Right.
Because you don't. And so as a result of that thinking, you end up in the justice system. And you're either been adjudicated for some offense or whatever it is, whether it be criminal thinking or whether it be substance use, mental health. All of those things are all parts of it. So I get the privilege every day of working with people to help persons understand who they are and then find alternative ways of thinking so that it impacts their behavior. If you're doing certain things and it's not getting you what you desire or what you want, then let's look at doing it a different way.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. So changing the way people think. Those kinds of things. And for me, I enjoy doing that. And the reason I enjoy doing it most isn't because I think I'm helping somebody else, but it actually helps me to look at my life. And then I say, you know what, Terry? Yeah, you need to approach things differently too. Maybe you need to change the way you think. So I don't just teach stuff that I'm not willing to do myself.
Right.
I apply these things to my own life. And so those types of things is what measures success for me. Having somebody 10 years later come and say, Mr. Hassell, you remember me? And I'm like, well, no, not really. Like, yeah, man, you helped me get into a treatment program, and I've been clean ever since. And this is going on, that's going on in my life, and I'm spending time with my children on. And for me, that's, I even thinking about it now, it's giving me goosebumps because those are the things that matter to me.
Yeah.
And again, it's not that I did this wonderful job with this individual. It was just that I allowed God to use me in a space, in a time, to help somebody to make a shift for the better for their life.
Yeah.
So I don't take any credit for anything. It just makes me feel very very warm inside because I was in a space at a time where I could help somebody. And I tell my clients all the time, like when I'm talking with them, I'm going to journey with you in this process, and I want you to know this is a judgment-free zone. And as we're journeying together, um, I may have some things that I could share that may help you, but I also want you to know that you're going to have some things that you're going to share that's going to help me. And so it's always about leveling the playing field and not making people think that you're looking down on them. But what's the saying? It's a spiritual saying. But for the grace of God, there go I. Certain different circumstances, different situations, and that could have been me. So yeah. So that's for me. Those are the things that matter.
As we're having this conversation, I'm realizing just how much alike we are. Because those are some of the things that kind of motivate me and stuff. Like I, as much as an extrovert and known for party and all kind of stuff, person as I am, I've always wanted to just connect people together and provide value to people.
Yeah.
And just share information and share knowledge, but also learn from people.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why I started doing this, what drives you, and wanted to interview people, is because I like learning from people as much as I like sharing.
Right.
And I've known that I've gotten good at asking questions, and I've always been a person that people can just come and talk to. I have a let me ask you a question face. I think I got that from you.
Well, yeah, I know. I could be walking down the street and I have complete strangers sometimes.
Right.
Just like, hey, how you doing? And it's that kind of random, hey, how you doing? But sometimes when you ask that question, like you also have to be prepared that not everybody's just gonna say fine and keep walking. There's always gonna be somebody that might say, hey, let me tell you. I remember one time when we were living in New York and was riding the subway, man, and this lady sat next to me on the train. And I think she might have had like 4 or 5 stops, man. But by the time we got to her stop, man, she told me her whole life story, and so I think, but I used to say, like, what is it that will do that? But people, we're living in a world today where people are hurting, right?
Yeah.
And we often find that people have become so self-centered and focused on their own thing that we don't really have time for people. Most people who have issues and problems in their life really don't want you to fix their problems and issues.
Yeah.
They just want to know that they can have a safe space where they can share that, and somebody actually cares enough to hear it.
Exactly.
They don't need to fix it, because for the most part, we all know what we need to do to manage, whatever it is that's going on in my life. If I'm drinking too much, for the most part, I don't need somebody to tell me, hey, you're drinking too much. You know that, and you just like, man, I need to cut down on this, whatever. But sometimes people just want to know the why, or want to be able to share the why.
Yeah.
I had a client, and I'm sorry, your daddy talks a lot. You should have warned your audience about that. I have countless stories behind things. But I had this client who was involved in gang life, criminal activity, whatever, for years. And I met with him. This is not too long ago. He's in his 40s now, but he's been in the street since he was like a youngster, kind of thing. But anyway, we were having this conversation, and he got referred to me, so I'm sitting with him, and the first thing I said to him is, he said, yeah, I'm here for X, Y, Z, and I'm like, okay, that's cool, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to do this, and for the most part, when guys come to see me, they're just trying to meet the requirements, right? So they may have a probation order, and on that order, there's certain things they're supposed to do. So they just may be trying to hit, make sure I'm compliant, that kind of stuff.
Just enough to
get
get off my case.
How many more months I have on this, whatever, right? So we were talking. I said to him, and he kept saying things, and I kept saying why. And he'll say something else, and I'm like, why? Because my mom was, my dad was, and I was like, okay, but why? You know? And
Yeah.
at one point we just, and he sat there, and then tears just welled up in his eye. I'm like, okay, tough guy. In my head, I just say it to you, because
Yeah.
it's in a therapeutic space. I'm sorry, but sometimes as therapists we do go on the side and just have a little chuckle at what takes place in it. That's being real, transparent. But he started welling up, so I said, well, what's happening? He said, man, all these years, and this wasn't his first
Probation session.
probation journey. This was maybe 10 to 12, but he said, all these years, nobody's ever asked me why and get to the bottom of the why. So one of the things I do now is, like, with my clients, is I do offer them a personality, Myers and Briggs personality typology, right? So to know your personality, who you are, because we all have a personality, and sometimes our circumstances and environments may dictate one thing. For instance, your environment may tell you that you're good for nothing, you'll never amount to anything, and you hear that all your life. But your personality is, you have the personality type to be a lawyer, doctor, or whatever. Right? You just haven't had the opportunity to explore those things because your environment, your circumstances, whatever. Anyway, so now I'm sharing with him about his personality type and his reading about his personality, who he is, and and seeing things like he's got the same type of personality like Barack Obama or something like that, and his eyes are lighting up, like because and that goes back to the why questions. Why am I this way, or why do I do what I do, or those kinds of things. And so helping people to unpackage that and understand that is like so refreshing. So anyway, now when I see him, like, when we have our sessions and stuff, he's just so excited because he's learning for the first time in his life who he really is and what he has the potential to become. And just changing the environment. So just thinking for a change. See how I made that connection? All my stuff comes together.
Still a pastor at heart.
And so those are the types of things. So when we're talking about success and successful in life, like, those are the things that matter.